Okay, so what we plan to start today is Python Pandas. And in the Python Pandas, we'll see that we have two data structures in order to work with. And let's see how we go about it. Okay. Now, we have done the SQL part. You have to practice a lot. Let's see that few days if we can have continuous where we can just, practice together. Let's see when that will be possible. Okay. Now, what is pandas exactly? Python we have done in 11th. What is pandas? Okay. Now, when you play games or you kind of work with any software as such, you will find add-ons to it. Don't you find that? Right. So these add-ons, what do they do? They kind of add features to it. Some extra things I can do, some uh, new things I can do in that. So libraries to a software, to a language work like that. Addition, add-ons. Like Python provides us a lot of things. We have done entire 11th, we have done dictionaries, we have done lists, we have done, basic condition operation programs, a lot of things we have done. Now, there are various libraries of Python which adds on lot of power to it. Okay. Out of that, what we work with is NumPy. We have done that in class 11. Gives you the ability to work with numerical arrays or arrays of different sorts, but mainly we use it for the numerical work only. And in 12th, we work with pandas as one of them and matplotlib. Matplotlib, the name is very, very clear that it's meant for plotting. So all your graphs will be done using this particular library. And pandas lets you do the data manipulation and analysis easily because the structures it provides, the functions it provides, it makes my work of data analysis easy. Fine. So we are now really moving on to our data analytics part of this particular syllabus. Right? So these are the three libraries which we are going to work with in our CBSE class 11, 12 syllabus. One was NumPy we've done in 11. Not completely, but yes, you have an idea about it. Then now we start with pandas and the next we are going to work with is matplotlib. All three have to be separately installed first and then you have to import it within the environment of your Python and then use it. Okay. Now, in pandas, we see that there are two ways of storing structure and using it. And those ways are called as the data structures of pandas. Okay. There are two ways of storing data. And the two names are series and data frames. Fine. There's a full form of pandas also that's called panel data. And this was asked once in the CBSE exam as an MCQ. So do remember panel data. Okay. So we talk about pandas in terms of two structures. One is a series and one is the data frames. Now, what is a series actually? It is letting you store data in, as we call it, as a one-dimensional array. That is one column of information you can store. One column of information. This is the data I'm talking about, which I want to store, and it's one column data. One column. Okay. It's not a row, it's a column. Correct? Any kind of data can be stored, but one column of information only. So obviously, when you talk about that I want to store more data, series will not be functional. You will have something else for that. Okay. But when you talk about series, single column data can be very, very easily handled and manipulated when I talk about storing it in the form of series. Okay. And what I see here is another thing which is called as index. So the data you store has a corresponding index to it. You can see that? And it is the default indexing which I'm showing you currently. And we have done this kind of a default indexing in lists also in class 11, isn't it? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that. by default. So if I don't give any index of my choice, which I can give, which I call as labels also later, right? Then system gives a default index to it. So I can access the data by default index also. I can access it by my index also. So list ke saath I get a difference here, that list does not allow me to put any kind of an index of my own. Whereas in series, I can do my own kind of indexing also. Okay. It has two parts, the data part and array of data, as I call it. If I understand array in simple terms, it's like together I store that data and I'm able to refer to it with one name and multiple addresses. Right. If I say this is my series S, so I would say S of 0 is this, S of 1 is this, S of 2 is this. Generally contiguous. That kind of a thing. Okay. So I have the data part and I have the index. Very important. Index will always be there. If you give your own, well and good. If you don't give your own, system will pick up its own index. Okay, simple. Single dimensional structure series. We definitely work further on to the series only today, but just one single uh, line about data frame. So the other structure which I have in my pandas is data frame. So it's very much looking like a tabular structure we have worked with in SQL. It has got rows, it has got columns, and it can take heterogeneous data, means all sorts of numbers, alphabets, dates, everything it can store. Okay. How to work with the data frames, how to create them, how to do all that, we do that later. Today we start working with the series. Fine. So as I know, it's a one-dimensional array. Number one, point number one about it, capable of holding data of any type. Fine. And it has got two parts to it. One is the index and one is the data. Okay. We learn to create series from my existing data in Python. I don't want to redo the whole data. I can create it using existing arrays. NumPy array banaya tha, usko utha ke now I want to make a series. Existing dictionaries in Python. I want to give my own values. Definitely possible. But we learn them in these terms. And also list. I mean, list becomes a very basic thing. So how do I create my series? This is the format. Now, because we do generally import pandas as PD, if you remember, we give an alias name. If you don't give an alias name, then after installation and import, it becomes pandas dot series. Very simple. You want to create series, you will use the series function. कोई complexity नहीं है इसमें. The only thing what you have to remember is that S is capital in this case. Okay, S capital. Then you give the data. Then you give the index, and you can also mention the d type. So like if you're storing 10, 20, 30, 40, and you say d type is equal to float, so 10.0, 12.0, 13.0, we'll take it like that. Okay, so these are the three things which I have to mention. Out of that, of course, this is the compulsory part. If you don't give index, it takes default index. If you don't give d type, it takes the way you have given the data. Int to float, string to string. I hope that's clear. Just keep on showing me thumbs up so that I know that you're alive. I'm waiting for your thumbs up. Okay. What about you, Manuraj? Are you there? Okay. Hoping to get it next time. Fine. So this is the way I'm going to create my series, right? Let's see the ways to do it. Various examples to do it. Now, number one, I want to create an empty series. Fine. I'll try to do it simultaneously on the system also, so that you get a real picture of it and you remember it better. Fine. First thing, of course, I have to install pandas, which I'll tell you how to do it. Maybe I'll send you a video for that. Import. After that, we import pandas, and generally we give a alias name so that I don't have to write the whole name all over again. Pandas again and again. So I'll be using PD instead of pandas. Very first time when you import, it takes little time to import, depending upon your system's speed. Once that is done, Then we start creating the series as the first method shows me here, which is empty series. Okay. Now, empty series, there's one correction I would put up here, that until unless I give a D type, that what kind of data type you want to specify, then it gives me a warning. Doesn't give me an error, mind it. Okay. It's just that they are saying that in the future versions, we want to make it by default float or by default in something like that. So it's better that you mention the data type when you create the blank series. Okay. So I'm saying D is equal to pd dot series brackets open, and I say let my data type be float. Accepted. When I print, it's a blank series, doesn't contain any data. You can see here. So you can create a blank series also later to be added, to it. Fine. Okay, that's the first thing. Don't forget to give this. If I don't, it doesn't give me an error though, but it gives me a warning. Okay. It has still created it, but it gives you a warning. I know. Okay. So next one. Now I want to give my own data and create my series. So in a list of values, I'm providing him the data within the square brackets because it's a list of values. And with the same function name, S capital, mind it, I'm creating my series. Fine. So any data, because series accepts multiple types of data. So I can use any data for that matter. So I'm saying pd dot series and list of values I'm taking directly here. And let that be 10, 20, 8, B, 30.5, three categories of data I've taken already. And my work is done. So my series is created. The moment you try to combine data types, so the data type shown to you later is object. Because obviously you cannot classify all this to be into integers also, neither float also, not string also. So he actually makes it like a string only, but displays it as object. Fine. As such in the exam, it's not compulsory to write data type every time. It's okay. Internally is handling it. Doesn't really matter to me. Fine. So this is how you create the series with your own data. Now let's see how do I do it with the arrays. Array के लिए for creating the array, we had done array function. If you remember in 11, we had done a range function. We had done zeros, ones. It would create a numpy array accordingly. We have done multiple functions. Let's use a few and do it now. Just that you create the array, or I'm going to use the existing array, whatever, and just use that name here. Okay. Default indexes, you can see it has picked up because I did not give any index. I only gave him the data, which is the numpy array data. Okay. So the array data is picked up and stored in the series, and the indexes are picked up by default. Fine. I hope that's fine. And you have to work with numpy. You have to import numpy first. If you remember, let's do that also. So I'm going to import numpy first. Again with the alias name, right? Now we go by creating the array first. So np dot array, that's the previous method to do it. Again with the list of values. Giving these values to it currently. Now I'm going to use to create it as create this as a series. So pd dot series S capital. And then I simply say, please use my G. Okay. And let us add an index here. You've seen it on the screen in the PPT that by default it is taking the index there because I'm not giving it. Now here I give index again as a list of values. There are 4 values. I'll give it 4 index. If there's a mismatch, it will give me an error. Like 3 data, 4 index, or 4 data, 3 index, it will give an error. Okay. So I have to give him 4 index because I'm going to provide him with 4 data. I am providing him with 4 data from direct. I will close the series. Yeah, it does. Okay. So it has simply taken the data from here because I used it. Okay. And the index I'm giving separately. If I don't give the index separately, 0, 1, 2, 3 by default. Fine. So format क्या होता है हमारा series का? First I give him the data, followed by I give him the index. Can I do it vice versa? Yes, I can do it vice versa. If I want to do it vice versa, there's one thing more to be done. That is, I will have to mention data also. Okay. Now, when I want to mention data like this, I mean, when I mention data is equal to this and index equal to this, दोनों अलग-अलग चीज हम उसको बता देते हैं. Then the sequence doesn't matter. So I can give the index first, followed by the data, no problem. Okay. If you do not, then data will be assumed to be the first value what you are providing and index will be assumed to be the second value you are providing. यहाँ पे तो मैंने index को फिर भी qualify कर दिया. Even if you don't qualify, first value is taken as data and second value is taken as index. But when you are going to see it on the screen, first comes the index, okay? And second comes the data. I'm very specifically telling this. You might find that ma'am has gone crazy. But क्या होता है when in the exam they give you this kind of a question and MCQs with output. ये output होगा या 2, 3, 4, 5 is index and ABCD is the value. There at times we get confused. So you have to very specifically see what is your data and what is your index. Index comes first, then comes the data when you are displaying the output. Index comes first, like roll number name, no? So you will never write name roll number, never. You always write roll number name or admission number name. Okay? So creating के time पे you might give it in any sequence, doesn't really matter. But when you are going to use it or display it, it's always going to be the index first and then the data. Is it fine? Rodrinil, can you make head or tail out of it?
Yes, ma'am. A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. See, I'll just kind of maybe fine. So we were actually working with creating examples. Fine. So we have done this part. Let's move on to the next. This I'm leaving because this is an attribute by which I can see the index I have associated with the series. Right? Attributes हम लोग separately पूरा ही करेंगे. So I'm currently not referring to it. Okay. One thing here to be noted that you have to be very particular. If you have got 4 values, it has to have 4 indexes. Otherwise, it gives an error like this. See the error also. कभी-कभी वो error भी पूछता है exam में. It's a value error, not a key error. Length of the past value is 3. Index implies 4. जैसे ये वाला example. But I've given the value is 3 and the index is 4. If it's perfect, it's going to come out perfect. If not, it gives a value error. Key error कब देगा जब हम access करने की कोशिश करते हैं. Now supposingly my key is FIRST with F small and all letters small, but I try to access it with F capital. Key error means he did not get the key you are mentioning. Okay, we'll see. Once we start working, we get all these kind of errors and we get used to it. But for that, practicals are important. We have to practice. Okay, this is one thing. Second is I'm using a range function. So one is I use array function where I'm giving the values directly. Second is this a range function. Now, not difficult. Array range. Okay, range we have used innumerable number of times in Python while doing the loops. The range function said start, stop, step. Right? But now with this range function, what I'm trying to do is create an array. So उसको उन्होंने बस name change कर दिया a range, array का range. So array का range is 3 followed by plus 3.5, so 6.5 you can see here, followed by another 3.5 which is 10, followed by another 3.5 which becomes 13.5 और ये stop value को cross कर जाता है, hence it doesn't create it. Okay, so three values you can see here, 3, 6.5 and 10.0. Okay, it should be 3.0 also because एक बार मैंने उसको 3.5 दिया तो all values are float. Once it is getting it as 6.5. ठीक है? So float it takes and creates my serial. No index given, you can see here. So default index. ठीक है? So numpy create करने के दो तरीके करे and then creating the series method is same. Now I give him one value. I want to make a series with value 30 and repeat it 4 times with first, second, third, fourth as my index. Okay, very, very significant thing to be taken care of. If I'm trying to do that, this value should be repeated as my data. Do not enclose in square brackets. Fine. What happens is when you try to create or do something like this, what I mean is, just a second. I'm saying that I'm trying to create a series like this. I just want to add this value to my series and let my index be, I'm giving the index also. Let the index be 2, 3, 4. Okay. What happens is single data and 3 indexes. Not possible. Single data in a list. Not possible. Oh, sorry. I did not write index equal to. Uske error change ho gaya. Index equal to hona chahiye. That's why he's not able to identify what is index. Index equal to. Now you'll get a huge error. Length of the data passed is 1. Index implies 3. But the same thing, if I do with mentioning 40 as a value, scalar value, not a list of value. Then जितनी बारी आपने index issue किया है, उतनी बारी वो data repeat होके आपका list बन जाएगा. You get it? 2, 3, 4 are my indexes. So 40, 40, 40, it is repeated. But if you give it as a list, it has to match the number of values in the index list. Okay. Again, this is a very, very significant question from exam point of view because they'll give you something like this and ask you to point out the error maybe or the output. So if it is a list, it is an error. Otherwise, it is this output. Okay. Now, some variations more. I am taking index में the range function I've learned. Default range function of Python. It's not array range. Simple range function. Okay. So rather than writing the indexes 1, 2, 3, 4 करके, I'm using the range function for him to generate the index values. Range 4 will generate 0, 1, 2, 3. है ना? Up till 4. Starts from 0. If you don't mention anything, starts from 0, goes till the 1 less than the upper value. So range 4 is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 100 को 3 बार repeat कर दिया. Here I set index range 0, 1. 0 से start करो up till 1. So एक ही बार आएगा वो. Remember, stop value को include नहीं करता. 11th में we are done. तो stop value को include नहीं करता तो सिर्फ 0. That's it. So once it will be. And you can see that example here. Right? So simple variations of this can be asked. Now here I'm taking the range proper by mentioning the start, the stop, the step. So 2 plus 2 will be 4, plus 2 will be 6, plus 2 will be 8. So वो cross कर गया. Stop value को it will not do. The 2, 4, 6 will be the index and the data comes like this. You can have this range function applied in the data. Also data is equal to range brackets में कुछ भी, depending upon your thing. So it is quite dynamic, quite flexible in order to create. Now, this is little tricky in the case when you are using a dictionary. Now, if you rewind your existing memory, You will have to remind yourself that I made dictionaries in Python like this. Like I'm saying Manuraj and I say 45. So name and marks. Okay. This is an index I'm trying to create. Adya 50. Fine. Name and marks. This is my dictionary R. Dictionary. Okay. Now I want to use this dictionary and create my series. Whenever you use a dictionary to create your series, automatically the keys, I call these as the keys of the dictionary, key value pair. हमने ऐसे ही पढ़ा है, key value pair में data store होता है dictionary में. So all your keys become the indexes of the dictionary and all your values become the data of the series. Sorry. All your keys of the dictionary become the indexes of the series. All your value of the dictionary becomes the data of the series. Okay? So let's try this out. D is equal to pd dot series brackets r. इसमें इंडेक्स देने की जरूरत ही नहीं है बिकॉज वो कीज को उठा लेगा ऑटोमेटिकली. So these have become your indexes and these are the data automatically. So this can be a, assertion reasoning question. That statement one is keys of the dictionary become the index of the series automatically. It's a true statement, right? I'm pointing out the questions which are have the higher possibility of being asked. ठीक है. अब इसमें एक वेरिएशन भी लो. ये तो सिंपल वाला डेटा हो गया. ठीक है. See this variation. This variation says I've made, this is my data, A0, B1, C2. Okay. Now I mentioned the index, but in the sequence of B, C, D, A. ठीक है. यहाँ पे data is A, B, C. If you don't mention anything, your indexes will be in the sequence of A, B, C only. But here I changed the sequence. I want the B data to come first, then the C, then a D, which doesn't exist, and A. Fine. He is intelligent enough to go and check for these indexes or these values in the form of in the keys and then extract the data. So क्या किया इसने? B का data pick करा, B को search किया, यहाँ पे he got B1. So first one is B1. Fine. Next is C. So he went and picked up C. C is 2. Now, if you see there's a dot here, hence it is picking up as decimals. Okay. 0 dot, 1 dot, 2 dot. Even if you don't give a 0.0, सिर्फ 0 dot भी दोगे तो float उठा लेगा. ठीक है. Now, D is not existing, तो वो error नहीं देता. What he does is for D, he writes nan. Now, full form of nan in the Python environment is not a number. It is very much equivalent to my null. मतलब नहीं है मेरे पास value. 0 नहीं है, but नहीं है value. It's different from 0. In SQL, we have done null so many times. है ना? Null को null की तरह is null, is not null करके हम handle करते हैं. So null is a specific value. It is not 0. Similarly, here also nan is a notation which tells you there is no value here. And 0 is different than that. So 0 is a value for him. Okay. And A next है. So A का 0 we pick up here. तो ये आपका sequence define कर सकते हो आप इस तरीके से. So whatever sequence of indexes you give it, accordingly he'll pick. And if you miss out something, it does not give an error. Please remember, it does not give an error. It picks it up as none. Is it fine? You're awake. Show me a thumbs up. So creating a series from dictionary is very, 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 very important from exam point of view. Great. Adya and Manuraj waiting for yours too. Good. Good. Fine. Okay. We move next. Just a simple another example. ऐसे भी data store हो सकता है. Name, class, section, marks, dictionary, and accordingly he picks it up and makes a series. Just various examples and variations I'm giving it to you here in front of you, so that when you revise, it is there in the mind. Now, another very, very important thing. I just have 1.5 minutes with me. And this is like a compulsory question in any exam you give of Pandas. Okay. Look here. There's a n array. Okay. इंडेक्स में मैंने उस एरे को यूज किया एंड डेटा में भी मैंने उस पर्टिकुलर एरे को यूज करा मल्टीप्लाइंग इट बाय 2. Okay. When you multiply something by 2, vectorized operation happens in the case of array. I know you don't remember the statement. I discussed it in class 11th also. लिस्ट के साथ जब हम मल्टीप्लाई बाय 2 करते हैं, लिस्ट गेट्स रेप्लिकेटेड. वो लिस्ट को रिपीट कर देता, उसके इंडिविजुअल एलिमेंट्स के साथ मल्टीप्लाई नहीं करता. But array being a numeric array, that is how arrays are important when you want to work with numbers. It is going to multiply every value by 2. That is what I want. Okay. So in index, the n comes directly, which is n 9, 10, 11, 12. And in the data, it is n into 2, which is 9 into 2, 18, 10 into 2, 20, 11 into 2, 22, and 12 into 2, 24. Fine. I quickly move on to the next slide. Here, it is a list, and I try to multiply it with 2. Obviously, then you can't give an index. You have to be very careful, otherwise, जितनी बार multiply करके data आएगा, उतने indexes दो. आप दे सकते हो, but you have to be careful about that then. Okay. यहाँ पे n into 2 में उसने 9 into 2 18 नहीं किया, 10 into 2 20 नहीं करा. It replicated the list